Hey, how's it going guys? It's your boy. Now I've got an interesting video for you guys. And also, I hate the shade, but that can be done tomorrow because we've got some important things to discuss in this video. So I've been seeing a trend recently, mainly on the right, and also it tends to be more on the extreme side, but you do have the occasional moderates who can veer towards extreme points of view, I guess you could say, who are saying that the fight against the social justice warriors, the left, is over. We've won. We need to just go home and relax because the battle is over. And if we anti-SJWs continue to make this stuff that we do, our videos, our blog posts, our activism, we'll just end up looking cringy. And, you know, what's the point? What are you fighting in the end? And they're basically saying, well, you know, the next battle is going to be between, who knows what it could be. It could be when the pendulum shifts to the right, it will be the extreme right, or whoever it is that wins in the battle of minds there, because there's a few factions. There is, of course, the alt-right, but then there's also the old extreme right. That could be fundamentalist Christians to even OG white nationalists who aren't alt-right and don't consider themselves to be alt-right yet. They do exist. There's also the alt-right, who are either moderate or not. I can't really tell, but they're another side who could totally end up becoming extreme in a different way. And there's also the corporatists. They've not really been dealt with yet, but then again, that's really difficult because they're corporatists and a lot of them own corporations. And to those people, I say no, the battle is far from over. You know, maybe in America, the battle is going to be a lot quicker. I mean, a couple of years quicker. But don't imagine for a second that you guys are off the hook, because as Louis Laveau has said constantly, whenever the Republicans are in power, they don't do anything to check the left. They don't do anything to check themselves, even. And this creates complacency. This creates problems. If you don't sort your own house out, as well as us, I'm not saying that we in Europe and elsewhere don't have our problems, and that aren't worse, they are worse, but bear with me. If you don't sort your problems out, they will only get worse. Your university system is full of them, overwhelmingly as such. As bad as ours. And let's not forget, the Democratic Party needs reforming. In fact, every political organisation that is left-wing in Europe and America needs reforming. Although there were some on the more fringe elements, a bit more red-pilled maybe on some issues. There's no real centre-left party anymore, because those parties that should be like that have been overtaken by Marxists. A prime example would be the Labour Party with Jeremy Corbyn. Academia, government in some countries, political parties, even if they're not in power, all these institutions, all these organisations, all these people are still under the rule of this ideology, this venomous ideology that does nothing but spread disaster wherever it goes. People think that this is over. People think that the battle is won. Maybe on YouTube to some extent. I mean, let's be honest, there are still big channels that espound that opinion, but as long as it's just an opinion being expressed and no longer in action, that's good. However, they're still bigger than the alt-right channels. Because I've seen Braving Ruin on Twitter constantly go on about TYT and other far-left channels, saying that, you know, their time is over, which, to be fair, it kind of is to some extent. They're not as big as they used to be. Their metrics are bad. But honestly, one, with TYT, it depends mainly on the stream and who's hosting it. And let's not forget, they've got 3.5 million subscribers, and he's got, what, tens of thousands? Peter Coffin's got 100,000. ContraPoints is growing. And let's not forget, a few people have jumped over to their side of the fence recently with the anti-SJWs. And a prime example among them is Robin Gething and Spinosaurus Kin. Yeah, they're not doing too badly on the metrics front, even though some of them, like Steve Shives, are basically dying, if not already died. He doesn't get the views that somebody of his size should get, but that's his own fault. Others have, of course, stopped. But others have not stopped, and they're doing okay for the most part. Even Jenny McDermott grows. And the alt-right, well, you know, they have a finite number of people anyway, and their ideology will not even remotely connect with most people on the planet. It just won't, no matter what they think. They get loads of views because their little circle, their cliques, give them those views. And that's only a couple 100,000 people, at least, if not most. I'll give them a couple million, maybe, but again, most of the people who follow so-called alt-right people who aren't actually alt-right, like PJW, he's just a moderate, and moderates support him, as well as conspiracy theory nuts who aren't necessarily right or left-wing, they're just conspiracy theorists. And even the centrists, or the so-called centrists, the alt-centrists, the centre-left, the centre-right, whatever you want to call them, even they aren't necessarily that big, although some of them are pretty big, like Paul Joseph Watson, for example. He's a prime example of that. But it's only on the internet. There is no physical presence as of, even with the whole liberalist thing. And it's going to take ages for us to even remotely get to that point where there is some kind of grassroots thing that could happen that could give the moderates some kind of voice and some power. Because if you think the alt-right don't have any, the centre doesn't really have that much, really. All of it is still, depending on where you are in the world, in the hands of the far left. I mean, just look at my country. I can only really speak for my country and occasionally some other European countries. We've got massive problems with demographics. We've got problems with the university system, as I mentioned before, the Labour Party. Even our present right-wing government is socially not very conservative. I guess economically, which can also impact their social policies. But other than that, the way they think about other people, what they think about equality and diversity and things like that, it's no different to Labour. But then again, that's always been the case with the three dominant parties. There's not really that much difference between them, and there probably never will be. Unless there's another paradigm shift, a la Margaret Thatcher or even Corbyn. Even he's kind of paradigm shift, and David Cameron basically started what the new Conservative Party is today. There is a new consensus, and it's not a very good one. This is going to take 10 to 15 years. All these problems need to be talked about, they need to be discussed, and they also need to be dealt with. But the problem is, whereas in America, you guys have got an easier job, you might take 5 to 10 years to sort your problems out. That is, of course, if you can fix the Democratic Party, which it probably won't, because Tulsi Gabbard is just not quite there yet. We've got an uphill battle. We've got existential threats, we've got internal threats, we've got problems left, right, centre in our infrastructure and our cultures and things like that, that it's going to take 10 to 15 years, it could take 20 years, it could take 30 years to fix. This is going to be a long battle. It's going to take many people's mental states away. It might even claim some lives. And I guess it kind of has, in many ways, if you count the crime statistics in London and other places. Even the internet isn't entirely safe. Not at all. Like, regardless of what you think about net neutrality, the left is still trying to censor it, and let's be honest, the right wing, they've got people who also believe that that isn't such a bad thing. And let's not forget that our video games will also suffer from that, because even that's becoming an online thing, and Gamergate is still felt even to this day. But to return to the internet thing, because the video game industry is going to take too long, I'll just say this. Unless new publishers, new people actually turn up and do good things, the decline in the West is going to happen. But then again, the market will shift to Japan again, so, you know, whatever. They've dug their own grave there, really. It's just a matter of time until they fall. But back to the internet. It's very simple. Even though YouTube as a marketplace for ideas has been won to some extent, YouTube itself is now beginning to fight back. Just this now, I've seen that YouTube is removing people's thumbnails that they find problematic. It happened to Sargon. And let's not forget that people like Sinatra Says and other people have been getting suspensions after suspensions. Now, some of it could be YouTube, potentially. Some of it could be. They've certainly been, unfairly I might add, attacking gun channels that have done nothing wrong. Now look, if you want to go after the ones who are spreading terrorism, go ahead. But the ones who are legally allowed to express these opinions and legally own firearms and don't want to go around killing people, they don't deserve that. And that's something that we need to look out for. That's something that we need to stop, because that's coming from the far left, guys. They're coming for your guns. This battle isn't won entirely. But the problem is with YouTube, unless we solve the issue with the higher ups in Google and Alphabet, we're not going to solve the issue down here. And I'm afraid that might never happen unless a miracle just somehow appears randomly, which is not going to happen. The internet is changing, and it's not changing in our favour. And let's not forget that it's because of these unfavourable changes that Dankula is now basically going to prison, potentially. Because the sentence has not been read out yet, they've not really figured it out. We don't know if he's going to get a suspended sentence, community service, or prison time. We don't really know. And there's another thing, free speech. Whereas America is pretty much safe for the time being, we're not. And in Britain it's getting worse. We're safer than the continental powers because we're an island to some extent, but we're not so safe from their ideas, sadly. Their bad ideas, that is. And, well, if I continue, well, I'll just repeat myself. So, there we go, guys. the fight is not over. It's only really just begun. And we're going to take a very long time to sort the world out. But because we're humanity and because the pendulum always shifts, new problems will arise where we just fix new ones. And I think that'll probably always be the case. Isn't it great to be political commentary YouTubers, guys? Anyway, until next time, it's been your boy, and I'll see you later.